Like, follow and subscribe my channel. They fired me effective immediately. The words came across the polished conference table, delivered with the casual authority of someone who'd never spent a day on a factory floor. Olivia Matthews, the newly appointed CEO of Sterling Automotive Parts, didn't even look up from her tablet when she said it. Mid-30s sharp blazer McKinsey consultant, written all over her posture. She was scrolling through spreadsheets, red stylus in hand, circling line items like they were personal enemies. I'm Harold Peterson, 49 years old, and I've spent the last 28 years building manufacturing systems that actually work. Not the kind that look good in PowerPoint presentations, but the kind that keep 2,400 people employed and $180 million in orders flowing through 12 facilities across 4 states. I sat there, hands flat on the table, watching her perform what she clearly thought was decisive leadership. Transition will be immediate, she continued, still not making eye contact. We're bringing systems management in-house, more efficient, better cost control. Behind her sat 2 people I'd never seen before, a nervous woman from HR clutching her tablet and a younger guy in an expensive suit who had consultant written all over him. No one from operations, no one who'd ever walked a production floor. Just Olivia and her imported expertise. She finally looked up, expressions somewhere between bored and irritated, like I was wasting her valuable time by still breathing. Before you go, she said, tapping her stylus against the tablet, hand over the smart factory system, all of it. Access credentials, source code, documentation. We need everything by end of business today. The room went quiet. The HR woman shifted in her seat. The consultant stopped typing on his laptop. I didn't move, just sat there, keeping my face neutral, letting the silence stretch. Olivia's eyebrow raised slightly. Is there a problem? I smiled, the kind of smile you give someone when you know something they don't. I'm afraid I can't do that. Her stylist stopped mid-tap. Excuse me. The system, I continued, voice steady and professional. It's not yours to take. Olivia's confident posture shifted just slightly. A flicker of confusion crossed her face before the corporate mask returned. We paid for development. That makes it company property. I shook my head slowly. You paid for operational access, not ownership. The distinction is outlined clearly in Section 7 of your service agreement. The consultant leaned forward, whispering something to Olivia. She waved him off, eyes locked on mine. This is absurd. You can't hold company infrastructure hostage. I'm not holding anything hostage, I replied. I'm simply clarifying what you legally control, which as of this moment is absolutely nothing. What Olivia Matthews didn't know, what her consultant and her HR team and her entire cost optimization plan had completely missed, was that the smart factory control system running Sterling's entire operation wasn't software sitting on their servers. It was custom-built infrastructure I owned personally, licensed for their use, controlled from hardware they'd never seen. And when they terminated my contract 3 minutes ago, they just disconnected themselves from the only thing keeping their manufacturing network from collapsing. In 48 hours, that oversight would cost them everything. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up and show you exactly how a manufacturing systems engineer with 28 years of Ford Motor experience got fired by someone who thought factory automation was just an app on a dashboard. I started at Ford right out of college, back when American manufacturing meant something. Spent 8 years on the floor before moving into systems integration. Learned early that manufacturing isn't about dashboards and data visualization. It's about understanding how physical machinery interacts with control systems in real time under real pressure. When Ford started their efficiency improvements in 2018, I saw the writing on the wall. Watched 800 good people lose their jobs because some consultant convinced management they could run the same production with half the workforce. That's when I went independent. Built my first custom ERP integration in 2019 for a Tier 2 supplier in Ohio. Word spread quietly through industry circles, the kind of reputation that gets you calls when someone's operation is falling apart and conventional solutions have failed. I don't have a fancy LinkedIn profile. Don't post about Industry 4.0 zero synergies or digital transformation journeys. My clients find me when their systems are broken, and their MBA consultants have no clue how to fix them. That's how I ended up working with Sterling Automotive Parts 5 years ago. George Whitman, their VP of operations at the time, called me on a Thursday afternoon. His voice had the tight edge of someone staring at disaster. "Hal, we just failed our third quality audit in 6 months," he said. "Oh me, contracts are threatening cancellation. I need someone who understands how this actually works, not another consultant who learned manufacturing from case studies." George was old school, came up through the ranks, spent years running production before moving into management. He understood that behind every clean dashboard and automated report, there's physical equipment that has to function flawlessly. When I walked into their main facility that first day, the chaos was immediately obvious. Production lines stopping and starting with no coordination, quality control running blind because their vision systems couldn't talk to their assembly robots, predictive maintenance alerts going nowhere because nobody knew how to interpret the data. "We've got 7 different software platforms that don't communicate," George explained, walking me through the production floor. "Assembly uses one system, quality control uses another. Maintenance scheduling is basically manual. Every shift change, we lose 2 hours just trying to synchronize operations. I spent the next 18 months building them a real system, not some off-the-shelf package that kind of works if you bend your entire operation to fit it. Custom control algorithms that learned the specific rhythms of their 12 facilities. Predictive maintenance that actually predicted failures before they happened. Real-time quality monitoring that caught defects at the source, not at final inspection. 18,000 lines of code. Every algorithm, every database structure, every hardware interface built from scratch and tested until it ran without failure. The results were immediate and measurable. 0 unplanned downtime. Defect rates dropped from 2.3% to 0.08%. OE metrics that made their OEM customers actually compliment them. George would send me detailed quarterly reports, not corporate thank you notes, but substantive analysis of efficiency improvements and cost reductions. The contract was crystal clear because I'd learned this lesson the hard way years ago. They licensed operational access to my system. I retained complete ownership of all source code, algorithms, and infrastructure. George signed without hesitation because he understood the difference between using something and owning it. For 5 years, everything ran perfectly. Monthly payments arrived on schedule. The system performed exactly as designed. George would call occasionally with questions about capacity expansion or new equipment integration, always respectful of the boundaries we'd established. Then George retired. Olivia Matthews arrived 3 weeks later with her MBA from Stanford and her tablet that probably cost more than most people's monthly mortgage. Her first communication wasn't a greeting or introduction, subject line, third-party vendor cost analysis. The email was pure corporate optimization language about recurring expenditure structures and dependency risk reduction. My invoice hadn't changed in 5 years. Same amount, same delivery schedule, same scope of work, but Olivia saw a line item on a budget sheet and immediately assumed there was fat to trim. I replied professionally, attaching the original contract and a summary of system performance metrics over the past 60 months. Her response came back within 2 hours. Need to schedule comprehensive review of all external service dependencies. Please prepare full documentation for internal assessment of operational systems. Operational systems. That phrase told me everything I needed to know about Olivia Matthews. She was the type who thought complex manufacturing infrastructure could be understood by reviewing slide decks. 4 days later, the email arrived that confirmed my suspicions. Subject line: System architecture documentation request. Olivia wanted a complete copy of the system for internal assessment and potential transition planning. She didn't want to review our service agreement. She wanted to take my system and eliminate the monthly payment. I sent back a response that was technically accurate and deliberately unhelpful. Happy to provide all materials included under your current operational license. Then I walked out to my garage workshop, sat down at the master control panel I built specifically for Sterling's system, and started preparing Olivia Matthews' education in the difference between access and ownership. 3 days after my documentation response, another email landed. Subject line: Intellectual property clarification. Olivia wanted written confirmation that all operational software logic belonged to Sterling Automotive Parts. operational software logic. That's what she called 5 years of custom manufacturing algorithms, predictive maintenance protocols, and real-time coordination engines. Like it was a commodity asset she could inventory and reassign. I screenshot the relevant contract clause and sent it back. Bold text, impossible to misinterpret. All system architecture, source code, design logic, and operational infrastructure remains the exclusive property of Harold Peterson, licensed for operational use only. No transfer, replication, or derivative development permitted without explicit written authorization. George Whitman had understood that clause perfectly when he signed it 5 years ago. You don't buy a custom manufacturing system like you're purchasing office equipment. You license access to infrastructure that took years to develop and requires constant maintenance from the person who built it. Olivia's response arrived 6 hours later. We will be transitioning to internal systems management effective immediately. Final payment will be processed per contract terms. Thank you for your service. That was it. No discussion, no transition planning, no acknowledgement that she was about to disconnect the central nervous system of a 12-facility manufacturing operation. Just corporate speak for you're done, and we're keeping your work. I sat at my desk for a long moment, staring at that email. Then I walked out to my workshop. Inside that converted 2-car garage sat the physical control infrastructure I'd built specifically for Sterling's network. Custom hardware interfaces with dedicated circuits for every major subsystem, production coordination, quality monitoring, predictive maintenance, equipment synchronization, all of it flowing through boards I'd assembled and programmed by hand. Olivia Matthews had no idea that Control Panel existed. She thought the system was software running on Sterling servers. She was about to learn the difference between a user interface and actual operational control. 6 days after her termination email, a calendar invite appeared. Systems transition meeting, Friday 10 a.m. Eastern. No agenda, no context, just a meeting title suggesting she expected this to be a simple handoff conversation. I joined the video call 3 minutes early. Professional appearance, clean button-down shirt, background showing my home office with my engineering certifications, and 28 years of Ford Service Awards visible on the wall. Olivia logged in 2 minutes late, settling into her chair with the satisfied expression of someone who thinks they've solved a complex problem with simple cost-cutting. A man from IT joined next, Brad Coleman, according to his screen name. Then a woman who looked fresh out of business school, tablet in hand, ready to take notes. George Whitman was nowhere on the call. Not surprising. He'd probably advised against this entire approach, and Olivia had decided his operational experience wasn't relevant to modern business strategy. Harold, thanks for joining, Olivia began, her tone suggesting this was routine administrative business. We've made the decision to bring systems management in-house. Appreciate all your work up to this point, but we're ready to assume direct operational control. Assume control as if navigating through dashboards was the same thing as running the underlying infrastructure. I kept my expression neutral. You're terminating the license agreement. Correct, Olivia said, leaning back like she expected praise for her decisive leadership. We'll need complete handover of all code repositories, system architecture documents, and back-end credentials. Standard transition process. Brad nodded along. The note-taker typed something into her tablet. They had this choreographed like routine vendor management. You're not licensed to access the core infrastructure, I said calmly. Your agreement covers operational use of system outputs. You never purchased ownership rights. Olivia's confident smile faltered slightly. We paid for development of this system, Harold. That makes it company intellectual property. This is standard business practice. You paid for operational access to a functioning manufacturing network, I replied. You never bought the underlying technology. That distinction is outlined explicitly in Section 7 of your contract. She glanced off camera, probably pulling up the contract on another screen. I waited while she scanned through language that George Whitman had reviewed carefully with their legal team 5 years ago. Look, she said, attempting to regain control. We understand there might be some technical nuances here, but we're prepared to handle operations internally going forward. Just provide whatever documentation you have so we can maintain service continuity. I'll provide everything you're legally entitled to receive, I said. Nothing more. The silence across the video call was sharp. Brad looked uncomfortable. The note-taker stopped typing. Olivia's jaw tightened as she realized this wasn't going to be the smooth asset transfer she'd planned. "That'll be fine," she said curtly, trying to end the call quickly. "We'll expect full delivery by close of business today." I didn't respond, just sat there looking directly into the camera while she fumbled with her mouse, clearly wanting to disconnect before I could complicate her timeline further. The screen went black. I closed my laptop. Olivia Matthews thought she understood manufacturing because she could navigate software interfaces and review quarterly performance reports. She had zero comprehension of the physical infrastructure, the custom hardware, the dedicated communication protocols, or the specialized knowledge required to keep it all functioning. She was about to get an expensive education. I walked out to my workshop and powered up the control panel. Every indicator showed green. Production lines synchronized across 12 facilities. Quality metrics updating in real time. Predictive maintenance algorithms running flawlessly across 89 stations. The entire Sterling manufacturing network running exactly as I designed it. Then I started building Olivia's transition package. Professional-looking documentation with clean diagrams and impressive technical language. User interface screenshots showing dashboard layouts and data visualization panels. Everything polished and official and completely useless without access to the underlying control systems. I spent 6 hours creating exactly the kind of deliverable Olivia expected to receive. Visual materials that would make her think she'd gotten what she needed to operate independently. Interface mock-ups with animated displays, system diagrams showing logical flow of operations, all of it disconnected from actual infrastructure. By 5:30 p.m., I had a comprehensive package ready. I attached it to an email with a single line, system interface documentation, provided per contract termination. Back-end infrastructure access not included per licensing agreement. I hit send and watched the message disappear into Sterling's corporate email system, where Olivia would soon discover the difference between owning a control panel and owning the engine. Then I walked back to my workshop, sat down at the master control console, and placed my hand on the primary power relay. The real education was about to begin. The next morning, I drove to Blue Ridge Diner like it was any other Friday. Small place near the interstate. Good coffee, quiet corner booths where you could work without interruption. Patricia Wells, the owner, had been serving me the same order for 3 years. Black coffee, no cream, wheat toast, scrambled eggs. She nodded when I walked in, poured the coffee without asking, and left me alone with my laptop. I opened the administrative console and brought up the main operations dashboard. Every indicator glowed green. Production flowing smoothly through 89 synchronized stations across 12 facilities. 950 machines receiving real-time coordination updates. Quality control systems cycling efficiently through 28 inspection points. Everything Olivia Matthews thought she now controlled was actually flowing through the custom hardware sitting in my garage workshop 20 minutes away. At 9:47 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text message from Olivia, having difficulty accessing route management interface. Please provide admin credentials immediately. I stared at the message for about 15 seconds, then deleted it without responding. At 9:52 a.m., I toggled the master relay switch. The dashboard on my screen froze instantly. Every green indicator went grey. Real-time data feeds dropped to 0. Production synchronization stopped mid-cycle. The entire Sterling manufacturing network just stopped communicating. I took a slow sip of coffee and watched 5 years of perfect coordination die in complete silence. The system didn't crash or throw error messages. I designed it to disconnect gracefully. No alarms, no warning indicators, no dramatic shutdown sequences. Just clean separation from all operational control. If someone tried to restart the user interface, it would load perfectly and display the last cached data, creating the illusion that everything was still working. But underneath, nothing was actually communicating with anything else. For the first 20 minutes, nothing appeared wrong to casual observation. Dashboard displays still showed green status indicators. Floor supervisors looking at their screens would see normal production metrics and quality readings. Would you like me to continue formatting scripts or assist with another creative writing task?